Hey everyone, MJ here. I'm enjoying a nice step two, a la Steve Wallace here in Taiwan. We're gonna pour this. I brought my own glass with me, and I'm using my lavalier mic, so I'm gonna need a sound check. Make sure you can hear me. 1 2 1 2. The lavalier mic here. See? Yeah. Because that way I don't have to speak so loud. Hi everybody, how's it going? Welcome on Africa TV and on Twitch and on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining. I got a little fog on my glasses here. Yeah, we're just at the Hilife, you know. Colloidal, how you doing, bro? Can you hear me okay? Haven't seen you for a while. Fist bump. Can you hear me okay? Sound check. 1 2 1 2. Because we look like we're good to go. So I've always, whenever I'm plugging like an external device in, I'm always kind of like, I don't know if it's working. Okay, thanks, good. Because, all right, if you don't mind, just a little more sound check. Thank you very much. J-Boy, fist bump to you. Because I'm barely talking. I mean, I'm not talking very loud at all. And I do have a windscreen on it. I could, for example, if I were to unhook it, I know it's making a little noise. But seriously, you know, if I was this close, I could basically whisper, and I think everybody can hear me. But anyway, for the time being. It's funny, I was talking with Dave today about lavalier mics, and we're talking about some wireless solutions. And I've had this lavalier mic for several years. It's made by a company called Aperture. It comes in a really, really nice box. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, that's kind of that's a YouTube thing, Gallardo, and also there is an issue with the YouTube API that I can't set it on ultra low latency. I can only set it on low latency. So the ultra low is just not quite happening. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to take some medicine, and my wife is always telling me I shouldn't take medicine with beer, but it all goes to the same place. This medicine does not interact with alcohol adversely anyway, so yeah, I kind of like this. I'm not talking very loud at all, and I'm not trying to save my voice. I'm just not trying to project, you know. Because one thing I don't want to do Kirin, boy, I wish they were my sponsor. One thing I don't want to do when I live stream is go someplace and, you know, bother people. The only thing though is that what you're hearing now is not stereo, because with Prism they use both, you know, both mics in the phone. There's always two mics. There's a mic at the bottom of your phone, and there's one at the top for noise canceling. That's phase reversal, and they do some other, you know, fancy algorithms to you know, kill the background noise. And so actually it's a very, very old technique, and if you guys want, I can tell you how to make a noise canceling microphone in the field out of two microphones. It's actually pretty easy. But the point being that they use both of those mics that are available for a stereo field, and it's really nice. Excuse me. But in this case, I am plugged into the microphone input. You know, on the phone, this is an Android phone, and there's an earphone jack on it, which I don't use, which is kind of ironic. Everybody's complaining about not having earphone jacks. I got one. I don't use it because I use Bluetooth. But there is, you know, on the TRRS tip ring sleeve connection, there is a mic input, and that's what I'm using. All right, that's great that you can hear me. Now this is another cable, and the cables are TRRS on one end, and they're TRS on the other end. So this is a cable that I could use if I wanted to go to like a DSLR. And this is really interesting. Hey Andreas. Cheers, good to see you, man. How you doing? All right. This is a TRRS, but then this is a micro USB female port. So this is for charging the lav mic. and this is the clip-on. Of course, my cable's on the way. This is the little clip-on mic pre. Okay, COVID-19 update. Really wasn't planning on it, but we have, because of Omicron and because it's human nature and everything added up, we have a small local outbreak of Omicron, and they're all Taiwanese nationals. Some of them were tied. Most of them, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're all tied to a cluster that began at the airport with some of the airport workers, and they also have like an after-hour singing club, you know. So, yeah, I think you're right. So, what I have to do is I have to get on the stick and take better care of myself, so that when I get it, I can make sure that I can ride it out. I don't really fear it. I think, you know, I don't think it's going to kill me, but never know. So we're up to 11 cases. It'll probably be, you know, I'm gonna make a prediction. I'm gonna say that it's probably gonna do like the last time. That's probably gonna go up to 300 or 400 cases a day for a couple weeks or a month. It's gonna scare people so bad that they're gonna, like, you know, ramp back down. So. No, it's now. It just started in the last 2 weeks or so. I guess you could say the very end of December. But yeah, it's the only thing anybody can do. Yeah. The bad part is we have, you know, so-called Chinese New Year coming up, right? Lunar New Year, and it's like, I don't know. We usually travel to Kaohsiung to visit the family, you know. Yep. It's a surge. Yep. So here's what I'm going to do. You guys have known me for a long time. Yeah, but the airport's in Taoyuan, and I have some friends in Taoyuan, and Taoyuan's not that far from here. And some of the people went to the Sogo, and some of the people that go to the Sogo, which is the department store in Taoyuan, go to the one in Hsinchu City, and it just, you know, it only takes one, you know. Only takes one, like Typhoid Mary, and there you go. Dave, how you doing? Fist bump to you. Dave, we're talking today, earlier, you and I, about, you know, lab mics and microphone solutions. I decided to use my lab mic tonight so I could speak a little more quietly, and that's what I'm doing. My voice is nice and low, and it seems to be fine. And we have our Kirin Ichiban for tonight, and I brought from home. This is an amazing place, Taiwan. I brought my own beer mug. Tell me, where else in the world can you do that? Can you go to a convenience store, set up a camera and a mic, live stream, go to the icebox, buy a beer, put it in a mug that you brought from home, and sit here and drink it? Nobody even looks at you twice. Besides being a foreigner, an obvious foreigner. Pretty amazing. Now, I haven't been broadcasting on Africa, not Africa, Africa. That's a Korean platform. I haven't been broadcasting on Africa TV for a long time. So I decided to reconnect to it. They're kind of like Twitch in a way. It's not as far as the content, but that if you don't have, you know, like 1 billion followers, or you don't have a premium account you pay for, then your content disappears after 2 weeks. But it's an interesting platform, and it's, you know, high quality platform, because, you know, Korean stuff is high quality. And, you know, Prism Live Studio, the software that I use, is designed and built by a Korean team. So they natively connect with Africa. I don't know if they capture the comments. I've never had a person on Africa TV make a comment. So if you can hear me on Africa TV, or if you can understand it in English, sorry, because I just, you know, 한국 사람이십니까? 미안합니다. Yeah, I don't speak Korean. And so if they could type something, I would appreciate it. Drunk and disorderly. There is no drunk and disorderly. You can do whatever you want. The only thing you can't do is drunk driving, because, you know, that was a big problem. people. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Oh. Komamsamnida. Hey, look at that. HSHCB. Wow, look at this. See, that means Africa TV comments burn, guys. That is the holy grail. That's like getting Instagram comments. Because when I was streaming to Africa TV before, I wrote to them and I asked them, is there a URL that I could use to capture the chat box? And they said, no, there isn't. And so Jake at Prism, which is run by Naver, well, okay, you're just, seeing the tip here of Korean quality with regard to apps. Of course, Naver is a very high-level app, and you have to be very well vetted before you can stream on it. They don't put up with any foolishness. They don't put up with any they don't put up with any kind of negative content, all that stuff. So I'm going to tell you something. I feel embarrassed because at one time I probably could read that, but these days I've been doing nothing but Chinese. So that's not. Nope, see, and I know the circle on the bottom is a yo, but sorry, I don't know. Sorry about that. And so what does FYI mean? So anyway, that's Russian, so Привет. Yeah, it's International Night here on Late Night with MJ Klein. So what the heck were we talking about? We're talking about coronavirus and stuff and drunken disorderly and things. So many people in Taiwan have been guilty of drunk driving that they really lately they raised the penalties. And I think the penalties aren't high enough. I think they should be insanely high to prevent people from doing it. But as long as you're not drunk, so yeah, but I don't know what VUR dot means, and then the other thing, so I don't know. Yeah, this is beer. This I'm drinking Kirin Ichiban because it's one of my favorites here. And of course this is Taiwan, but I'm starting to say I don't like, it is good. I'm starting to say I don't like Taiwan beer. I like Japanese beer, I like Korean beer. I like some Chinese beer, and I've had beer, in a lot of places. There's some Vietnam beer here too, and Thai beers that I like. So, yeah, but the Taiwan beer, no, I don't know why. I just don't like Taiwan beer. It's funny. I lived in Taiwan for 18 years, so SBC. Where are you in Korea? What town? Where are you viewing from? Thanks for joining. An Old Monk, yeah, but that's not beer, but the Old Monk, that's right, yeah, absolutely. If Old Monk made a beer, I'd try it. If Old Monk made a beer, it would probably be insane. It'd be insanely good, wouldn't it? My goodness. All right, so my Korean friends when I was younger used to call me Jangnam, which means honest man. I thought that was cool. That's what they call me. Actually, an old man named me that. That was nice. So we have a small COVID outbreak, but what I'm going to do? You guys have been with me a long time, and you've seen me like I was really heavier a long time ago. I lost a lot of weight, and I have recently put it back on. I'm going to admit I have been feeling bad. I've been depressed and not feeling well. There have been a lot of things that have happened, but I'm going to admit that I really don't have any reason, to feel depressed. And this is the bizarre thing about depression. This is great. I can just put this back as far as I want because I've got the lab mic. Depression just happens sometimes. It just comes out. It's a chemical thing. It's all about, what's going on in the brain, right? And so people sometimes in the past have said to me things like, well, just snap out of it. And it's like, what do you mean? Like I like being this way and I can just, it's a state of mind, but it's a state of mind that you don't always have control over. And I've got so many things going. I mean, I got a personal studio. I'm working on my tunes. I got a beautiful wife. I got a beautiful daughter. I have so many things. Those are just some of the tangible material things. I have so many, spiritual things and not immaterial. I guess immaterial, but usually that means something that doesn't matter. Just things that aren't materialistic of that nature. That I have no reason to feel depression, but yet I do sometimes, and I don't know why. I wake up in the morning and I tell my wife, I said, "This is, I haven't got out of bed today, and it just sucks. It feels like it sucks, and I don't know why." And when that happens, I do what everybody else does. I seek comfort, and I usually do stuff like eat potato chips or Cheetos or some other complex carbohydrate-rich foods that are not good for me because I lean towards diabetes because my dad died of that, and my age and everything, so I shouldn't be doing that. So what's happening now is I enjoy eating. I like food, of course, but now when a lot of times when I eat, I feel terrible after. So yeah, he's right. Yep, I take at least 7,000 international units of vitamin D3 every day. It does. I actually, Colloidal, I actually take so many of the supplements that are recommended for holding off COVID-19 already I've been taking these for years already. Like, for example, NAC, and acetyl L-carnitine. So I don't even, I look at these labels, I don't even know how to say this stuff. I just know what it's for. Excuse me. But anyway, what I'm going to do is, I've been saying this for a while, and I start to do it, and then I get feeling depressed again. And I've gone on a couple of fasts recently and lost several kilograms, and then felt depressed and started eating again. So this time I'm mad. We do. Problem is, it'll probably be deleted because I'm not a doctor. But the other thing is, a lot of these, that's 7,000 international units is quite a bit. But 15 minutes in the sun, you can get at least 10,000. So here in Taiwan, Patrick, how you doing, bro? Fist bump to you. Patrick is the gentleman that, excuse me, he's a programmer from France, and he's a gentleman that I have been working with had the privilege of working with and helping him develop a software tool for mixing it. You guys have heard all about that on other shows and stuff. But Patrick, how's it going, man? Good to see you. I got my lab mic clipped on so I could just kind of whisper and not, I'm talking about my depression and what it's done to me and some of the things and what I'm doing on, about it. So with vitamin K2, yeah. I know K2 has some very beneficial effects on the body. The problem is now I have been ordering, I've been ordering from iHerb, and now iHerb has a problem with Taiwan Customs. They say that Taiwan Customs has changed their inspection now. It's more rigid. They can't send things. I know somebody, Michael Turton told me that he ordered something from iHerb that was in Taiwan Customs for 2 months, and I get stuff all the time and it comes right in. I have a trading company and things. I've got a broker if I need one. So I need to get on iHerb's case, because what it is Taiwan Customs actually released a news article that was made in the Taiwan newspapers that said that iHerb needs to get their act together and work with carriers that can properly customs clear. What's going on is they've been using the short form and they've been trying to slide stuff through, and you can't do that. Almost everything. I'm like the only person that I know that doesn't lie on customs import documents, like the commercial invoices, and the official declaration. I never lie on them. And so I bought something. I bought like Levitating Moon, and I get this package, and it's I can't see what's inside it, and it's like a generic box. And I look at, first thing I did is, because I don't want to open it unless I read what the packing slip says, right? So it has my name on it and everything, and so I sliced open the pouch, and I'm looking at it, and it says it was a magnetic bracket or something, and it was a ridiculously low price. And I said, well, if this is the levitating moon, then this can't be, Now, I like levitating moon, and I sound like I'm calling them liars, but I mean, I don't know who filled out that application. Somebody at the office, or the declaration. Somebody at the office, or somebody in the, at the warehouse. I don't know, but a couple things I bought recently were underreported, and all Taiwan's trying to do is stop that from happening, because they're losing, obviously, import duties. But like, if you take less than 3,000 NT, no, there's no import duty. Well, no, they have warehouses all over the place, but mostly the stuff that I get ships from California. But I don't know about it I don't know about Korea, but I know they have warehouses other places. But here's what's going to happen: if I can't start getting my supplements, I'm gonna do a Dorian Gray in front of you guys. I'm gonna age like 20 years like that, because all this stuff that I've been taking is for basically age reduction, age reversal. But let me get back to the other things, because I just want to tell you, you guys who know me, you can encourage me. And those of you who join me on social media, like in our late night line group, keep after me, because starting tomorrow, I'm going to go on a liquid diet for as long as I can. I want to completely reset my metabolism. I want to reset my glucose and my fasting glucose levels. I want to drop, I'm not going to give you a number, but I have a number in mind. It's very ambitious, but I can do it, because I dropped 10 kilograms last time. That's 22 pounds in the imperial system, and it really wasn't that hard. It's just it's a mindset. The other thing too is I'm going to move the exercise equipment into my bedroom, because I always get tied up and I get busy and there's stuff in the way, Wow. Yeah. And the other thing that they do too, Patrick, is if it's a Taiwan company, right, that's a factory in China, then they just ship it from Taiwan to get around that. So yeah, every penny. Well, people are mad, people are upset with China. And I know, well, the French are known for not putting up with a whole bunch of crap. And if you look at what's going on, look at the TV now, French people have this, well, you guys got a reputation for throwing down when it comes to something that you don't like. So, hey, it's cool with me. I think it's funny. Okay, now, this is number 2. Oh, no. See, that's a common misconception. When my family went to Thailand, right before the breakout, the last week in January and first week in February in 2020. Now, you guys remember that tragedy with all those, excuse me, those kids, those 13 Thai kids in the soccer team. They went into a cave, right? And then there was a rainstorm and a flash flood, and it filled all the the tunnels that they had crawled through, and they couldn't get out. You guys remember that, right? And so we went to that place. I saw that place. I wanted to see it. It was nearby. It was near the Golden Triangle, up near Burma and or Myanmar, and so it was my wife and our old pal Xiao Hui, used to live down here, and her husband, it's a Vietnam husband, and we're all in Thailand. And we were speaking Chinese, and we were talking about this. And now my wife knows this because I have demonstrated this before, because I went like 14 days without eating anything. And it's nothing. It was like standing on your head. You get a little bit hungry, but what happens is after the 3rd day, you start experiencing appetite suppression, because now you have ketosis, which develops, and the ketones in your bloodstream, so they shut down the hunger because they figure, well, guy's not eating any food, so it's not really fair to make him feel hungry until he can, get some food. It's just it's a reaction. So, but Xiaohui was under the impression that if you don't get, because it's really like, there's an old saying, and this is not a derogatory saying, but people say that Chinese live to eat because they relish food and they relish eating. And even like China itself is basically a secular state with no official religion. And it's been my personal experience that most people there really don't have religious beliefs, But when they sit down to eat, it's almost like that is a religious belief or a religious ritual. They're so, thankful for the food. They don't thank a deity or anything, but they are appreciative of the food, and they try not to waste it. And it's a kind of a sacred gathering to eat, and it's one of the things that they can do, even if they don't have any money. They can share food with somebody else. That's like a massive social thing, and it almost has a religious significance, right? So anyway, okay, so I'm just trying to figure out how I can phrase this. So now that you know how food is viewed, usually by people of Chinese descent who are raised in a Chinese-speaking environment, they're under the impression that they can't go for a day or 2 days without eating. And you'll see some movies, like there's gosh, I forget her name. She's annoying as crap. There's this movie with Jackie Chan, and he's with some girl, and I saw the Chinese version, and it's like the middle of the afternoon, and she didn't go to Starbucks in the morning, and she's just going, is how you say I'm hungry, and you just want to go, what are you, 2-year-old? Can you just be quiet, And I hear people saying, I can't wait another hour. Why? What'll happen? It's different if you have, okay, let me qualify that. If you have blood glucose regulation problems, this is a whole different story. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the average person with a normal metabolism. So, what Xiaohui was saying was that those kids were in the cave for several weeks, and she said it was amazing that they didn't die. I said no, there's no reason for them to die because they had oxygen and they had water. The biggest problem is with that, right? Hey, Gert, how you doing? Hey guys, follow Whiskey Lover Society. Hey Patrick, I'm not sure if you know Gert, but he runs a channel. He's recently started it. He's gaining a lot of momentum, but he does what he calls the No BS Whiskey Review. Yeah, and he also, because actually, Patrick, I had asked you about some French whiskeys because I heard about them from Gert. Gert's from South Africa. He's living in Belgium, and he does an amazing number of videos a week. The guy's cranking these things out like a production line. It's great. Good to see you, bro. Nice to have you with us. Fist bump. So the biggest problem in this situation, like in that cave, right, was where to defecate, where to urinate, so that didn't pollute the water supply. You know what I'm saying? And it's dark, and so you have to that's, if you guys are in this situation and you've got a flashlight that maybe has 4 or 5 hours worth of light, you need to get to work right away to find and mark, so you can find it in the dark somehow by figuring it around, some kind of demarcation system, whether they're piled stones or whatever. Hey Matthew, fist bump to you. You have to figure out where you're going to drink and where you're going to poop, and they can't mix, because the smallest amount of that material in the water will kill you. They had the wherewithal to do it. They had a coach that realized this, and they established a place, obviously, to do their business, and they're there for an indeterminate period of time. It's 13 kids. I mean, people are, urinating several times a day, say defecating once a week, 13 people. I mean, that's a lot of material, right, that you have to deal with. So you have to find a place that it doesn't run down or, you know. And they were able to not pollute the water supply. So the water that came in was murky, but it was fresh water. And there are cases where you have to risk drinking the water, you know, risking things like maybe crypto or whatever that you might end up ingesting that might cause you problems later, but you have to risk that in order to stay alive now. You can treat that later, but you have to stay alive now. So there's a greater risk of dehydration and death. So they were able to work without, you know, the food. They were complaining and stuff, but after 3 days it just goes away. But you're just basically sitting around listening to yourself breathe in a cave. There's, you know, and it's dark and there's just wondering what's going to happen. But at least you have water, right? And so, you know, they were singing songs and stuff, and the coach, you know, to his credit, did a fantastic job. And none of those teammates were lost. Unfortunately, one of the rescuers were lost. They call him Sergeant Sam. I saw this statue of him. He was a Thai Navy SEAL, and he was built. They got a life-sized bronze statue of him out front, and boy, it's a pretty emotionally moving sight. And the thing that was really interesting about the visitor center was, you know what I'm going to do? I'll prepare a show on this. Okay, I'll put together these. I'll show this to you. Okay, I will. I'll put this all together for you and show you right on Prism Live Studio. I'm going to show you the photographs of what I'm talking about. But Sergeant Sam lost his life because he was carrying oxygen bottles, you know, because they had to scuba dive and bring these kids out. And scuba experts and cave divers, experts from all over the world, converged on Thailand, and they formed a plan. This is a civilian group. They formed a plan, and they went and they got them out, all of them. And the only person who passed away was he asphyxiated. So Sergeant Sam lost consciousness and he never regained it. But when you go into the visitor center, there are like 3/4 size cardboard cutouts of all the rescuers, including Sergeant Sam, that are right in the front. And it's pretty impressive. You open the door, it's like, wow, it's like these people are standing there. And then it takes you a second to you know, to realize so. Right. Exactly. Fasting, even intermittent fasting, resets glucose. It resets your fasting. See, all right, as you guys know, I'm a fan. I basically subscribe to Dr. Sears's recommendations, and you all know I went to the Sears Institute for Anti-Aging in 2018. And he gives his patients over 60, you know, like 10 points more than he would a young person. So he says that your fasting blood sugar level after 8 hours should be 110. For most people, it's 100. Now, when I went on a really long fast, this was a couple years ago when I was fasting to lose weight, I woke up in the morning and my fasting blood sugar was 82, you know, and then like the next day it was like 84. It was ridiculously good. And so no matter how bad it is, you can get it down. There is a website called reversediabetes.com. And I haven't been there for a long time, but what they had was they had a PDF program. You know, it was a program, but what I don't mean like a computer program, an application. I just mean it was a program of action, and in PDF format. It's geared towards the U.S. market because a lot of the style foods and things were, you know, common in the United States, but that's not the point. The point was that they were showing you glycemic foods and non-glycemic foods and how to choose between the two. And they were telling you that what you have to do is you have to fast until you get your blood sugar levels down to below 100. When you, hey Mike, how you doing? All right, fist bump. Thank you. Haven't seen you for a while. How's it going, man? And you know, get your blood glucose, your fasting blood glucose levels down to under 100. And then you start introducing foods. And the idea is that there are two things that are at play. First thing is you have the foods being glycemic themselves, which is an issue. But the second thing is people develop insulin resistance too. So even if your pancreas is functioning correctly and you have proper amounts of insulin, it's not effective. And so that's the problem with metformin, is metformin will increase your pancreas output, but it just burns it out in the meantime. It's like, you know, a nuclear reactor will run at 105%. You just don't want to be around to see what happens if you run it at 105% too long. That's the problem. One of the things that can help you, and gosh, I know I'm going to get banned for disinformation, but I swear to guys that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. So I go to doctors and I ask them questions, and I go to lawyers and I ask them questions so I can find this stuff out. Back in the mid 80s, as a broadcast engineer, I got called in on a job to, okay, cool. Yeah, see that happened to my dad too, because my dad had type 2 diabetes, and his doctor told him to get on the stick. His blood sugar was too high, and I went to GNC and got him a bottle of chromium picolinate and jacked him up on chromium picolinate, and he came back the next week, and the doctor was actually angry at him. What did you do? You must have done something artificial or bad to lower your blood sugar, because you can't go from where you were to where you are now. I'm like, you can if you straighten out your insulin receptors, but they don't want to hear that. What I'm getting ready to tell you was, we moved WHDH from the radio station, the studios from their original spot, I guess in ComAv in Boston, to the Bullfinch Place in the Channel 7 building, because Channel 7 had bought them. And I was one of the engineers in charge of moving the studio and rewiring the whole thing, right? So, excellent, Mike. Excellent. And so the chief engineer, Dana Popolo, who you guys heard me talk about, he said, we're throwing everything in this room out. Anything in this room you want, you can have. So I was like, oh, I like that office chair. He said, take it. And they had books everywhere. This is a talk radio station. So they must have had, a couple hundred book authors, in the studio for interviews over the years, and all those books were on the shelves. And one of them caught my eye, and it was about this thick, huge book, and it was called The Chromium Program. I don't know why it caught my eye, but I'm really glad I did. I put it on the chair and wheeled the chair out of the office and put it down, and went downstairs and put it in the trunk of my car. Read the book from cover to cover and kept going like, wow, wow, wow. Drunish, how you doing? Fist bump. Well, Drunish, I try to stream twice a day, and I would stream twice a day, twice a week. But before I got banned on Reddit, I was streaming in between on Reddit. And so once I got banned on Reddit, We Are the World, I didn't want to stream anywhere on Reddit at all ever again. So I'm sticking on these platforms. But right now I'm broadcasting on Africa TV, which is a Korean platform, and simultaneously on Twitch and on YouTube. And we've already had, we have a couple viewers on Africa TV, and I haven't been on Africa TV for a couple of years, and some viewers are joining us tonight, and they were typing in Korean earlier, which is interesting because it's hard to capture those comments, but Prism Live Studio can do it. So let me get back. I read the Chromium program from cover to cover, and I was astonished, just smacked, I realized that Chromium was the key to fixing insulin receptors that don't work. And okay, you've heard me say this before, but there are some people here that haven't heard it. I need to tell you the story. How insulin receptors work is, imagine that you are a stock clerk in a big warehouse, okay, and you've got a barcode scanner. It's a gun. That's ironic because I used to write software for those things. So, you know, the truck comes, they ring the bell, you open up the roll-up door, and you pull all these pallets, these skids off the truck, and put them in the loading area, and then you are assigned to the task of putting them in the warehouse where they belong. So what do? You get out your gun, your barcode, and you go beep, and it tells you what it is and subsequently where it goes. And you pick it up and you move it your fork truck. But one day, you go to scan something and it goes beep, what? Beep, It doesn't work anymore. Or sometimes it works. Or it gives you wrong information. It could be any number of failures, but it is failing. So what happens? When it doesn't work at all, you've got a skid. And you go, I don't know what this is. It's really heavy. It's hard to pick up, and there's a lot of it, so we're going to throw away like 3/4 of it because we don't know what it is, and it's just too heavy and it takes up too much room. And what is this? Oh, this is nice and light, and there isn't so much of it, so we'll keep this. And you're starting to make these decisions arbitrarily and have nothing to do with, you know, the actual value of the product. And that's what happens with your insulin receptors. They throw away nutrients, they throw away minerals, they throw away things that you need for proper metabolism, and they store the wrong stuff like fat. That's what happens with insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is like a self-fulfilling thing, because the fatter you get, the worse insulin resistance you have. And if your insulin receptors don't work, the receptor, you guys have heard so much about receptors, right, with the COVID-19, the little feely things that touch and they go, what are you? Like, you know, like dogs sniffing each other's butt. What are you? Okay, I know. That's exactly how it works. So the insulin receptors don't know what this is, and they throw it away or they store it. So they store fat and they throw good stuff away. It just happens to be the failure mode. Chromium is essential for the proper operation of our insulin receptors. And there's another very important element, vanadium. Those two work together in synergy. Years ago, I'm talking 30 years ago, GNC stores in the United States had a liquid colloidal chromium and vanadium sublingual eyedropper application supplement. It was unbelievable. I took it all the time, and then it disappeared because it was helping people recover from diabetes, and they couldn't sell their diabetes treatments. This has been going on for a long time. You think this crap going on with ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and all this from COVID is new? No. This is old stuff. It's about a monopoly. I took chromium. I went to GNC and took chromium, and I lost 5 pounds like that. That's like, you know, a couple kg, right? And this is in the late 80s. This is like 87 or 88, right? So I eventually started reading more and realized, you know, about the vanadium, and I started taking the vanadium, and I was working out, man, and I turned into a lean, mean, you know what machine, let me tell you. So I go to visit my dad in 1991. He called me up. He said they have some problems in one of their factories, and I'm going to come down and help them troubleshoot some stuff. They're doing he was doing flame safeguard and heat treating, and he had some other kind of strange things he was doing with the heat treating. But anyway, he said he could use my help for a couple of weeks to help him hash a few things out. So I went down there, and they were putting a chiller in, and you know, for the heat treat oil, and he had a couple of these sodium furnaces. They have liquid sodium for heat treating, and some had problems. They wouldn't run and stuff. So I fixed them all and got them running. And then, so we're at lunch one time, and my father's business partner's name is Ron, and we're just, you know, shooting the breeze. And Ron casually mentioned about him taking supplementary insulin. And I was like, really? Because, I mean, you're not that heavy. Yeah, you got, a normal beer gut for a 50-year-old guy, but it's not like you're, And he said, yeah, my doctor told me if I, keep going the way I'm going, I'm going to have to get an insulin pump and all this stuff. I said, no, there's no reason for any of that. And he's like, looking at me like, yeah, what are you, a doctor? So I said, look, man, I read this book, the Chromium program, and I told him what I just told you guys, right? And he said, well, is it safe? I said, yeah, it's a trace mineral. It's like like you got these 1-a-day vitamins. They have vitamins and minerals. Now you don't want to confuse the two, but they're just minerals, and it's a trace mineral. It's like 200 micrograms a dose. He said, where can I get it? I said, go to GNC. He said, okay. So we got a couple bottles, from GNC, and he started taking it. And in the meantime, I finished my tour of duty down there with my dad, and I went back to Boston and, went back to what I was doing, right? And so I talked to my dad, like, I don't know, every 2 months or so. Hey, how's it going? And I'd hang up the phone with him, and I go, forgot to ask about Ron, man. I want to see what happened, And so eventually, I was talking to my dad, and I had him on the phone, and I remembered now. Okay, oh, Dad, I got you on the phone. Oh, hang on a second. Don't go away. I want to ask you about Ron. He goes, yeah, go ahead. I said, well, when I was down there in '91, I told him about Chromium, and because he was on, supplementary insulin, and he'd been taking Chromium. Is he still taking it? And my dad said, oh, I never told you what happened? I said, no. He said, well, he lost 40 pounds, and he's completely off of supplementary insulin. I'm like, really? Yeah, so apparently his doctor was baffled by that. So, in '99, that's when I was visiting my dad again, and I went to visit him for 4 months, and I helped him do a whole bunch of stuff. We cut a hole in the ceiling and put a pull-down ladder, and I built some new shelves for him in his office and did a whole bunch of stuff, and fixed some stuff in some factories that he had trouble with because it was more my specialty than his, And while he was down there, he had a checkup, and he comes back and he goes, the doctor says my blood sugar's too high. And I said, well, you know what to do. Remember Ron? And he goes, yeah, that's right. So we went to GNC, and that's what I'm telling you, because it's like a flashback now. I said, how many of these should I take? I said, it's a trace mineral. It's like 250 micrograms. Take 5 of them right now, because you haven't taken any for years. So take 5 of them now, take 5 of them tomorrow, and then go to 2 for a couple more days, and then you can go down to 1 once you've kind of, replenished yourself. And he went back to the doctor, and the doctor was mad. What could you possibly have done to fake your blood glucose numbers? And you try to explain, what we did, doctor, was we addressed the underlying issue was his insulin receptors didn't work, so we simply added chromium in the form of chromium picolinate at 200 micrograms per dose, 5 doses per day for a couple days. And they don't, it's like, no, that's impossible. That can't be. Because the FDA, and after that point, it's like, that's why. Seriously. Now, nobody said a thing for the last 10 minutes. So either you all have quit watching, or you're completely mesmerized by what I said. I hope it's well, I don't hope you're mesmerized, but it might be just because you're listening. But this is the kind of stuff that we have to deal with. And so I'm specifically taking supplements for cognitization. Thanks, Matthew. I'm taking supplements like berberine. Okay, good, thank you. Berberine, also known as sea buckthorn, is very important in Chinese medicine for reducing. Okay, thank you. It's for reducing blood glucose. Yep, the A1C test Thank you. The A1C test that's the litmus test to make sure. And excuse me, Bert is right, because that gives you, not a one. See, you take your blood, and that's a 1 day, or every time you do it. But the A1C gives you the 6 months average, and you can get a real good idea what's going on. But anyway, recently, some good news. Several companies have come out with non-invasive glucose monitoring systems that don't pierce the skin, don't cause pain, don't draw blood. It's amazing. And one I saw today was from Hyderabad. Did I say that right, J-Boy? From India. I saw another one that has a smartwatch. You still have to buy like some kind of a expendable strip that costs money, but hey, that thing doesn't stab you, and it monitors your blood glucose all day long. But I'm going to tell you right now, that is going to start another problem that I know the companies that are making these devices know about this problem, but I haven't heard anybody address it in any of the articles. And that's because blood glucose measurements are based on a 2-hour time period. Hey, how's it going? That's Passion Puppy. Bella, right? Did I get that right? Good to see you. So if you eat something, you take your blood glucose measurements 20 minutes from now, it could be sky high. And blood glucose peaks are something that's highly debated. But the point is, you have to have a standard. Excellent. And so the standard is, it's 2 hours. And so, okay, thanks, Ken. Well, you're never interrupted, okay? And I like the challenge. The challenge is my favorite inspector, Clouseau, would say. So, Говорите по-английски, пожалуйста. So there you go. Metformin will burn out your pancreas and kill you. It's a lot easier to take chromium and vanadium and straighten out your insulin receptors and stop eating, complex carbohydrates and fasting until you get your blood sugar down below. Now, of course, I'm talking through my hat if you've got type 1, but so that's for 9 watching. For me, 9 is really good. So. Gert, the ones that I was not the Apple one, the one that I was looking at said that they don't stick you, but it is an expendable. But yeah, it's gonna be money. You got to pay for it either way. But so. Okay, type 2 is completely reversible. Now, my information comes from Dr. Al Sears, MD, who runs the Sears Institute for Anti-Aging, a place that I have visited in South Florida. I had like $3,000 US worth of Star Trek level tests done on me. Here's the problem. Insulin receptors don't work without chromium and vanadium, which are 2 trace elements that we don't have. I know people don't like Dr. Joel Wallach. They think he's a quack because he preached colloidal minerals, but he's right about that. See, here's the thing. Nobody's right about everything. We know this as human beings. So just because you have a doctor that will talk for an hour and say one thing that might not be correct doesn't mean that you have to disregard everything that they say. It's not a character flaw. It's called human imperfection. All right. Now, that being said, well, of course he does. See, doctors don't study wellness. They study sickness. That's the problem. Metformin doesn't solve the underlying cause. When I was in Bali, I told them about my brother-in-law and said, thanks, Drunish, take care. Thank you so much. He's getting all these cancer operations in classic US medical style. The radiologist notices a splotch and they surgically remove it. And if he doesn't notice the splotch, it continues to grow until he does notice. Westy said that's very dangerous. You have to remove the underlying cause. And he took me to his herbal medicine factory and showed me the cure for cancer. And they're routinely using it. And everybody knows what it is. All right. The problem is insulin resistance and insulin receptors don't work. And I'm telling you, if you go to GNC and you take chromium picolinate, it's 200 micrograms, per little dose. Take it every day. Start out with a couple, just to infuse it into your system, because they're just trace elements, okay? That's all they are. They're just minerals. And Dr. Wallach used to recommend these colloidal minerals that had 60 or 70 different kinds of trace minerals, and I've taken those, and they make tremendous differences. Things like aches and pains in your fingers and joints suddenly disappear, and you go, wow, what's going on? This is one of the things where you start taking it, and you go, it doesn't really do anything. You stop taking it, and you go, oh crap, what I have these pains, and you realize, oh, okay, it was gradually helping me, but I didn't notice it until it went away and it fell off quickly. Because I was just talking about, Bella, you're gonna have to go back and listen to the stream earlier, because I'm talking about my father, and I talked about his business partner named Ron. But if you can get the insulin receptors working again, chromium, it's just like the chromium on your car, CHROIMIUM, chromium, and you'll see it, picolinate, okay, like PICO. Picolinate. It's at GNC. It's cheap. It's cheap. And the other one that you want is vanadium, chromium and vanadium. If you can find like a fulvic mineral that has 50 or 60 of these in, like europium and namibidium and all these other ones that I can't even pronounce, we need these rare earth, elements. But they're just super microscopic, and so we can live without them, but we can't live to our full extent. That's the problem. Now, if you start taking chromium right away, you're probably going to drop 5 pounds, maybe more. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Thanks, Gert. You're probably going to drop 5 pounds right away. I'm talking about like within 10 days. That's what happens with most people. And my father's business partner, as I just said, I'll repeat it. My father's business partner was on supplementary, oral doses of insulin. And all I did was recommend chromium picolinate after I read a book called The Chromium Program. And this would be in the late 80s. I met him in 1991 and told him what I had read. He started taking chromium picolinate and he lost 40 pounds. He's in the US, he uses the Imperial system. He lost 40 pounds and he's off of insulin. And so it's common knowledge, but not commonly disseminated, and it is against the best interest of the FDA and the medical cartel for people to know that for obvious reasons. And so, yes, there is a conspiracy. It is not a theory. It's a hard fact. Chromium picolinate and vanadium, they work together. They're synergistic. And if they can straighten out your insulin receptors and get them working, the second thing you want to do is fast, intermittent fasting. Fasting will cause your blood sugar to just drop down to normal levels. Another thing you can do, that's interesting, isn't it? That's interesting. But we need europium in our bodies, but just minuscule amounts, microscopic amounts. Anyway, so there are many other things like apple cider vinegar, and I also take black cumin seed oil. I take berberine. Another thing you can take is, because if you look at berberine, now this is amazing. Wikipedia actually changed the berberine page because it used to say that in double-blind studies, berberine proved to be as effective as metformin in reducing blood glucose. However, see, the way that metformin reduces blood glucose is to jack up your insulin levels, so it burns out your pancreas. What berberine does is it makes the insulin that you're already making more efficient so it does its job and it works. And one way you can tell is, Bella, do your ears ring a lot? Yeah. You have ringing in the ears frequently. So, ringing in the ears is caused very often by high insulin levels. Your bloodstream probably has enough insulin in it, but you have become insulin resistant. I'm insulin resistant. I know what I'm talking about. I have screwed up my metabolism because I've been depressed and I didn't care. And I am reversing it now. I told everybody earlier tonight, I'm going on a big fast starting tomorrow. Because what happens is, if you stop eating for a week, it resets. You wake up in the morning, you jab yourself, and you look at your blood glucose meter and go, wow, it's 92. I fasted for 10 days and my fasting blood sugar level was 82. That's fantastic. They keep giving a higher dose, right? Because it's not addressing, it's not addressing the underlying cause, which is insulin resistance. You understand what I mean? There are certain things, certain problems. I gotta think of an illustration, but there are certain problems that you can temporarily solve by adding more of something. Like, for example, if you had a boat with a big hole in the side of it and you were bailing it out, or you were pumping it, you had a bilge pump and more water was coming in, okay, so you add another couple of bilge pumps. And so now you're pumping out more water that's coming in. Okay, you're fine until the hole starts decaying, or you get another hole or something like that. Eventually you become overwhelmed. There are a lot of things like that in life and in our experience that, you can double up on the treatment. It works for a while, but because it doesn't solve the underlying cause. And that's why many cancers return, because they didn't do the hyperbaric oxygen treatment. They didn't do, the turmeric mother root, and the antioxidant, and just, because I knew a guy that had cancer in the 80s. And he took this stuff called Cancel. Couldn't get it in the United States, FDA banned it. I talked to a doctor about this, from the National Cancer Institute and stuff, and the FDA issued a report about Cancel, and in their own report, the report was designed to discredit it, but the data showed that it worked better than anything that they had. It's also called Intilev, and anyway, there's go jump through flaming hoops to keep ahead of the authorities. But Cancel basically works by, it's a chemical method. All right, let me tell you how this works. Because it was developed by a mechanical engineer. That's why doctors hated it, because it wasn't developed by a doctor. See, here's the thing. How cancer works is we all know about the oxygen reduction ladder. That's like high school, biology, right? The more aerobic a cell is, the higher it is on the oxygen reduction ladder. And it goes down so far it becomes anaerobic and stuff, and then it's dead, right? Well, the thing about cancer cells is they become infected with cancer and they stop working. They go down the ladder, but they're still high enough that the killer T cells are roaming the body looking for issues and problems. And the cancer cells are invisible because they're still functional enough, high enough up the ladder, that the T cells don't recognize them as a threat and eliminate them. But they're still sick enough that they infect other cells around them and they grow. This is basically a very simplistic but easy to understand illustration of the problem with cancer. So this mechanical engineer said, okay, can we chemically induce these cells to go back up on the oxygen reduction ladder and become productive members of the, the cellular society? And the answer to that question is yes. However, the chemical compounds that are required to do that are toxic to the organism. Yeah, okay. So this engineer said, well, is there any way that we can push them off down to the bottom to where the T cells can recognize them? And one of the chemists that he was talking to said, had never thought about it before, and said, yeah, actually, yeah, it wouldn't take that much to do. And so this mechanical engineer worked on the formulation, because it turned out to be very easy to push them down, and he worked on a formulation of this material, and it's kind of it's an inert thing. It's just a liquid. It doesn't really have much of a flavor to it. But anyway, this person that I knew took it. And he said he took it for 6 weeks, and one day he sat on the toilet and he had the most disgusting bowel movement in the history of his life. He said that his body was flushing stuff out that looked like egg whites, just gushing out, and it's like a lot of it, and he was on the toilet for a long time until finally it all evacuated from his body. And those were the cells that were pushed off the oxygen reduction ladder down to the bottom, and the T cells said, oh, there you go, get rid of that guy, he's bad. And they got rid, and the T cells did their job. And we see now with COVID-19, it's the T cell immunity that's saving people. It's not the antibodies. The T cells are the cooler. Okay, the antibodies are the bouncer, but the T cells are the cooler. They're the ones that throw the person out of the club and make sure they never come back. So, anyway, I'm not a doctor. This is all knowledge that I have acquired because for years and years and years, I did not have a job. I was unemployed, I was injured, I had medical problems, I was disabled, and I had nothing to do but research. And then, after that, all the research that I did, I checked out with actual medical doctors who were open-minded enough to just directly answer my questions and not try to second guess why I was asking them. Yeah, you're right. I got the reference, yes. I'm going to tell you that at one time, I had an equal, if not greater, knowledge of United States income tax law, but I'm not going to get into that. So we lost another great this week, Sidney Poitier. Now, I don't know if Coco's going to kill me or not, but Coco did tell everyone, Coco's family name is Poitier. She's Sidney Poitier's cousin. I thought that was so cool. So I'm really sorry to hear that. Coco came back to our group this week, and we couldn't be happier. And you guys heard me talk about it. I actually was talking to Dave, and I was thinking about doing an actual broadcast titled "Where is Coco?" And the broadcast was all about where's Coco. I haven't seen her, but my better judgment told me, nah, I don't want to embarrass her like that. But we all have things to do, and we all have obligations to meet, and live streaming is just not that important, and certainly listening to me is not that important. So I never get upset or never chastise people or try to make them feel guilty because, hey, I didn't see you at my live stream. What's going on? What were you doing? Were you taking care of your kids? What were you doing? Going to work? Come on. And speaking of kids, my co-host is he's joining me again tonight. So I want to welcome Mr. Grayson Phillips to the show. Grayson, how you doing? It's good to see you. And yeah. Thank you, Ken. Fist bump to you. I really appreciate it. Thanks. Now, I was at Winwin's the other day, and that's what I had, if you remember that. But I'm not going to be eating any of this stuff for the next 2 weeks. It does connect, doesn't it? It's all interrelated. It's all connected. You guys know that I wouldn't purposely tell you something that I knew was not right. I wouldn't purposely tell you a lie. But, you know, excuse me, Brett Weinstein said something a couple of months ago on one of the Dark Horse podcasts. And if you haven't seen the Dark Horse podcast with Brett Weinstein, he's one of the most level-headed and balanced scientists out there, and his wife's a scientist too, Heather Haying. And you know, Heather's very soft-spoken, very polite, you know, and so yeah. Well, so Patricia obviously has some experience with that, so yeah. That's. I mean, the whole point of the book, the Chromium program, was the doctor said, I got to get this, you know, this information out there, because why don't people know this? And you know, the thing is, right, is even in France, chromium's nothing. It's and ivermectin too. These elements, they don't cost anything. And NAC, they're pennies. I think I read a report that said that ivermectin is like it's like a kilogram for $100 US or something. I don't know how many thousand doses you can make. So yeah. And plants contain nutrients, but the problem is the farmlands of the world have been depleted. So you can't get your nutrients. You can't get all your minerals from plants, so you have to supplement. And so the whole thing about these fulvic minerals, or these colloidal minerals, is that in the central part of the United States, somebody drilled down, I don't know why, but maybe it was there, and they found a bunch of fossilized plants that were in some form that could be harvested for their mineral content, and that's where these fulvic minerals come from. It's amazing. So I get a liquid fulvic colloidal mineral supplement by a company called Now Foods from iHerb, and it's about $10, and it lasts for a month. So, well, they're doing that in the United States too. NAC, right? I've been taking NAC for years, and suddenly a report came out that NAC has some kind of effectiveness against COVID-19, and then a week later, an article, FDA's taking it off because, you know, the FDA is worried because those people who make supplements, you know, Patrick, they're not using good controls, and you might not be getting quality products, so we have to shield you from taking it. A lot of foods do. Now, you know something, Bella, you just touched on it. In the mid-1930s, the U.S. Department of Agriculture declared U.S. farmlands depleted. So, the problem is with agricultural production, it's bushels and pecks. All they care about is volume. For those of you who don't know, bushels and pecks are imperial measurements in the United States, like basically based on the basket. Nobody measures the mineral content of corn and rates it. You grow corn, it's about the taste. And some of the genetic modifications that are being done to these plants are all about taste and yield. So the problem is the elements are not in the foods. So that's why companies are using these ancient fossilized or even semi-fossilized plant deposits that are in clay that are, you know, underneath the tundra in the United States. You should read about that. And the thing about colloidals is, well, you know, there's several ways that you can increase the absorption of some elements. One of them is chelated, they call it. I'm going to tell you, I don't even know what that is, because it's not as effective as colloidal, so I didn't bother to study what chelated is. But colloidals are actually elements that are smaller than the pores of the colon, which is where they would be absorbed, and they have an electrical charge to them that draws them into the colon. So colloidal minerals have somewhere between like a 95 to 97% absorption. But rock minerals, this is amazing, because Dr. Wallach, again, a lot of people think he's a quack, but like I said, not every doctor says everything that's correct. But if you sift through and you cherry pick the elements, Dr. Wallach had some really amazing things that he said. And one of his lectures that I heard, he said a friend of his owns a porta potty company, those portable toilets, right? And of course, before they process the waste material, they have to filter it. They run everything through a screen, because kids throw toys in there, or they'll throw a stone or something like that, right? And so they run it through a screen to separate all this stuff out before they deal with the liquid elements. And so this owner, and this is Dr. Wallach talking, showed him a pile. He says, "What that?" He says, "Those are vitamin pills." People take their vitamin pill in the morning, and they go to some event and they take a poop in my porta potty, and it comes out because it doesn't get absorbed. How would you know that? When's the last time you pooped in a bucket and took a fork or something and looked at it and said, what's in there? Which is what ancient Chinese doctors used to do. They would catch your poop in a pan, and they would spread it out and look and see what's in it, what didn't get absorbed. And based on the consistency, the color, the odor, and whatnot, then they would recommend food recommendations, for the next day. Sounds kind of gross, but it makes total sense. So Wallach was like shocked that all of these, these people are wasting billions, in one-a-day vitamins and other things, and they're not being absorbed. And so, even pharmaceutical companies, for example, I saw an ad for a company that all they did was they took Viagra, just standard off-the-shelf Viagra, and they crushed it up into this really fine powder and put it in a capsule that you could put it under your tongue, so that if you just put it under your tongue, it would start working within 10 to 15 minutes rather than 45 minutes to an hour, just because of the absorption under the tongue. Now, I was telling you before about the chromium and vanadium liquid colloidal mineral supplements that I saw at GNC years ago. You can't get those anymore. At least the last time I looked, you couldn't get them anymore. They don't have them anymore. But that was specifically designed to help with insulin resistance and diabetes type 2, and it was sublingual. You put it under the tongue. That's what you do. Sometimes I have cardiac episodes. I have arrhythmia and things. It's nothing wrong with my heart. My heart is actually in very, very good condition, and on paper, I have the cardiopulmonary system of a 25-year-old man, according to the paper. Something's wrong with my control system up here in the brain. If I have really, really bad palpitations and problems and I have to take the medication, I put it on my tongue. Nobody told me to do that, but I put it on my tongue because I know that that's where it gets into my system faster, and it works every single time. So Bella, you got nothing to lose. Go to your GNC, get some chromium picolinate. Maybe the drugstore has it too. It might be a little higher price there. Nothing to lose. It'll be like 200 milligrams or 200 micrograms per dose. You can take, 3, 4, 5 the first day again, and ramp it down. So like, a week later you're taking 1 a day, because you want to get some into your system so it starts working. But ubiquinol, CoQ10, the bioavailable version of ubiquinol is another super therapy that most doctors don't know about, and Dr. Sears has been talking about this for over 20 years. I've been taking ubiquinol for a number of years, and it has solved many issues with me, but it really, really is a cardiac protector, and you only need 100 or 200 milligrams, whereas if you were taking regular CoQ10, the equivalent amount would be about 1,500 milligrams. Now remember, most of these are nutritional supplements, so they're not chemical. So like with CoQ10, in order to, thank you, Patrick, thank you so much, take care. And you too, Gart, thanks so much, I appreciate it. In order, to overdose on these things, you would have to take a tremendous amount, because they're food, basically, they're nutritional supplements, they're not like, they're not like chemical compounds. Some of them are like NAC, but they're incredibly safe, so. Yeah, Dave's right, I should do a supplement show. I should probably do it from, I never did this before. I should do it from my kitchen table and just show you all the stuff that I take, like fenugreek, and ashwagandha, and just all kinds of stuff, ginkgo and everything else. And it all has a specific purpose that I've looked at and been informed of, by Dr. Sears, and it's been very, very beneficial for me. So, all right, everybody's going, so maybe I should go too. I don't know. All right, let me do this. I want to play George's bumper. No, this isn't it. This is not it. Hang on. Where is George's bumper? George, where are you, George? Where are you? Where are you? Gosh, I know I got George's bumper in here. This is a second one. I never edited it, but this is one.
This is George from JDF Taiwan. You're watching the Late Night with MJ Klein.
Thanks, J-Boy. I appreciate it. Thanks. Where is George? George's bumper? Oh, this has got to be it right here, right? Is this it? No, I guess that's gone. No, some of these are gone. Oh, I may have inadvertently taken that off my phone without realizing it. Okay. Well, let me play something I haven't played for a long time. I love this. I made a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing this video. Oh, one thing I want to ask is, while I have these headphones plugged in and I'm playing these videos that have audio, right? Is the audio playing back on these video sources that I'm playing? So, you mean a date? You mean on the supplement show? Is that what you mean? Of course, the thing of it is, I don't know how I would broadcast that date, where you would see it, because I don't have enough followers on YouTube. Okay, good. I don't have enough followers on YouTube to use the community tab, so I'm not going to do about that. So yeah, I'm really not using Twitter anymore. Twitter is such a bad place. Bella, do you use Line? Line is the name of the app. It's used all over Asia and even India. I have so many people that use Line, and I have a Line group of about 30 of my followers, and it's a really, really nice place. J-Boy just recently joined us, and J-Boy, what do you think? I mean, that line group it's a great group of people, isn't it? And it's not so much traffic, that your phone's going to be beeping every 30 seconds because everybody's yakking so much. No. But people share some, genuine things that are important to them and their family and so forth. And so, Asian supplement, yeah, I take berberine, I do, and I've been a big fan of Chinese medicine for years. And because the good part about it is I can go to the Chinese doctor and I can talk to him in Chinese. I went to one doctor in Kaohsiung, and I had printed out some stuff, and because I didn't want to write it by hand, but I printed out the Chinese name of the plant for berberine, and I showed it to him. I said, can you get this? He goes, yeah, we prescribe this for patients with diabetes. It's like, Duh. That's true. Better than trolls, yeah. So, I was like, would you prescribe that to me? And he said, sure, what's the problem? I said, well, I just want to control my blood glucose. And he had no problems prescribing it to me because here's the thing about berberine, because it's natural. If your blood glucose levels are normal, it doesn't reduce them to below normal because, below normal levels are even more dangerous. I mean, immediately dangerous. You can die instantly if your blood sugar crashes down. You're going to die. If you could have blood sugar that's like 500 for 20 years, and yeah, eventually they'll cut your foot off or something. Okay, so it's not instantly lethal. But what I'm saying is, I was able to get the berberine, but even iHerb has berberine. So I take from Zone Nutrition. I take an iHerb berberine supplement. But what I really need to do is just go to one of these Chinese medicine places here in the in the local area. Don't need a prescription. Don't need nothing. I've got my insurance card. I just show it to them. Tell them what I want. I want to put it in a capsule, and I can take 2, 3, 4 a day, and it lowers blood sugar by at least 10 points. But some studies show that you can get up to like a 20 or slightly higher blood sugar reduction. And so here's the thing. Most people don't have, 250 or some of my friends I knew, their blood sugar was 500. It's crazy. Most people are high, like 170, might be 200. So if you get a 20 or 30, point reduction, that's significant. It can bring you back in, to where you need to be. And I take several things like that, like the apple cider vinegar does that. The black cumin seed does that. The berberine does that. So I'm taking, supplement upon supplement upon supplement upon supplement, whose only focus is blood sugar regulation and reduction. And so I also take DIM, which is for, it's a testosterone protector. It regulates estrogen, and it doesn't matter which gender you are, it just puts the estrogen in where it needs to be. So for men, if there's too much, it pulls it down, and if there's women, if there isn't enough, it pulls it up. And so that has a great effect on like the menstrual cycle. It can reduce a lot of the negative side effects of the cycle, and the headaches and so forth. But for men, I told a couple of men, because I'm in my mid-60s, I told a couple of men here in Taiwan that they should take DIM. And it came, and I said, okay, I'm going to hear back, from you within 10 days. And they're always laughing, okay, yeah. And usually about day 8 or day 9, I get an OMG message from them saying, this has increased my virility and my power. But it's not just that. It's like every other part of, masculinity, just like endurance in walking or exercise or lifting weights or whatever it is. And also is increased mental focus. I take DIM every day too. And that was recommended to me by Dr. Sears after I took all those. I told you I took those tests. Like it was $3,000 worth of these tests, or Star Trek level tests, I say, because I had like they put me on a flatbed scanner and scanned my body for bone density. 120 and 130, I'm going to tell you something. I mean, I'm not a doctor. You should not be taking metformin for that. Okay, berberine, chromium picolinate, black cumin seed, you add 20 minutes of exercise a day to your routine and you can get that down. That is not high. That's not high. You're not in diabetes range, you're in pre-diabetes range. Man, I am very surprised. Wait a minute. No, I'm not. I'm not surprised that your doctor prescribed that for 120 to 130. But Dr. Sears would never have done that. He takes his patients off of metformin. He takes his patients off of statins too, because they don't do anything. Check out Dr. Al Sears. Now, somebody in the comments earlier had mentioned another doctor. So later I'm going to go back and review my own live stream. I'm going to check out what that doctor said, because I always like to hear different opinions. But yeah, I'm telling you, Bella, seriously, just do this, because, you know, if you're taking metformin, right, you have to, you're taking your blood sugar measurements every day, a couple times a day, you know, so you know how much to take and whether you need to take it or not. So you've got a really good handle on what your blood glucose is. So just go take some chromium picolinate, see what happens. Might be surprised. Might be surprised. But you know another thing you can do too, and this worked for me, excuse me, I'm burping because I'm drinking beer. Sometimes I would fast only for 1 day or 2 days. There's a period of time for several months though where I fasted for the first 3 days. I would have my last meal on Sunday night. I would go to Monday night, not eat. Tuesday night, not eat. Wednesday night, not eat. It's 3 days. The next morning I would get up and I would have a non-glycemic breakfast, like bacon, eggs, and some cheese. Or some kind of meat, some kind of, you know, non-glycemic stuff. And that right away would give me, you know, a nice input of food, nothing glycemic, and that has a tendency to regulate blood sugar. And then I wouldn't eat anything glycemic, and I would eat again just 1 meal a day until, I might eat 2, until I hit Sunday night. And part of the other problem too is that, you know, most people haven't missed a meal in 30 years or 40 years. We eat far too much food. If you eat 3 meals a day times 7, that is a lot of food and a lot of eating, and we don't need that much. I never eat 3 meals a day. I have not eaten 3 meals a day since I was a kid, and my mom made me. For years and years, I used to eat 1 meal a day in the States, and all the doctors would say, oh, it's so bad, so bad. I remember some doctors saying, oh, you should eat 6 meals a day and break it down. No. And fasting is good for you. And some people do different levels of fasting, like the 20/4, where 20 hours of the day they would not eat, and they would get all their nutrition for the day in 4 hours. Or they'll do like, you know, 8/16 or something like that. So whatever works for you. Intermittent fasting is something that you can do when you want to. You don't need a reason. You can just do it. You can stop whenever you want to. You don't need a reason. I just listen to what my body says. Sometimes I fast for 5 or 6 days. My body says, eat something. But I don't go and get a donut. I'll go get, I might just cook like a hamburger patty and a couple eggs, non-glycemic. And it just kind of satiates me for a while. Other things that do have some carbohydrates but are still considered not so highly glycemic but have high levels of nutrition. You know, they're nutritionally dense, would be like mixed nuts, things like that. So I'll go to Costco, get a couple of those big jars of mixed nuts. And if I'm going on particularly long fast, like 10 days, you know, 12 or 15 days, and I get like that, I'll just take a scoop, you know, like a handful of these nuts, and I'll eat them over like 15 minutes, and that just kills the hunger, and I'm good for a couple of days. So that, you know, that's another thing that you can do. All right, guys, this has been a really interesting discussion. I had no idea I was going to talk about this. I had no intention of talking about this. This is all off of my head. No preparation. I got, if you looked at it, there's nothing here but 2 beer cans and a, you know, my gimbal's sitting there, I'm not using it, and my mask. So anyway, other than that, things are going well, and my daughter Phoenix has her winter break coming up, and Phoenix and I are going to be going in the studio. I'm having her sing on one of my new songs. I'm going to release it very soon, and you're going to love it. So you guys take care. I got to go. You guys take care. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to thank you for joining me on Africa TV, and my friends in Korea. I want to say, 대단히 고맙습니다. Okay, and so everybody else, and we got our friends on Twitch. I want to say thank you so much for joining on Twitch and then YouTube, of course, and everybody in Taiwan. I want to say, xie 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 xie. So we'll see you next time. You guys take care, and we'll say, 再见, 晚安, which means see you next time, and good night in Chinese. Guys, take care. Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you so much. Bye bye. That's great. The lab mic works.